Okay, it's 7:03. I'd like to call to order the meeting, the reorganization meeting for the Board of Education. Was there a declaration of public notice?
Yes.
Okay. And the first item of business is the election of board president. And just as a reminder, that our board policy 152 gives us our guidelines in the election process. And so to begin with, I would ask for nominations for the position of president.
I would request paper ballots.
Okay, we've had a request for paper ballots. And so each board member should, in front of them, have a yellow document that asks for nominations for the position of board president. So at this time, we'll ask each board member to make their nomination by written ballot for that position. And then if Joyce would please collect those when everyone is ready.
I'll let Joyce go around and collect them.
Each office.
I'll hand it all down.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think it's for the whole thing, isn't it? Thank you. To make the
Oh,
request.
no, I believe for the whole, yes, that's my understanding.
So we couldn't use these if we didn't request them?
That's right.
What's that?
We couldn't use these if we didn't request them?
If no request it, that's right.
Right.
Did you?
What?
Did you? Otherwise?
Thank you for reminding me to put your phone to silent.
Okay, we have received 4 nominations for the office of president. There's a nomination for Andrew McKinney. We have a nomination for Jeff Simpson. We have nomination for Peter Sobel. And we have nomination for Susan Fox. Okay. So, the next step then would to be cast your written ballot for one of those 4 individuals that were nominated. Would anyone like me to repeat the nominations? So you only, yeah,
Just one.
in case we need more than one vote. Right, so there are extra documents in case we need more than one vote.
So in case of, yes.
Yeah, so procedurally, for the election, we need a majority vote, so a minimum of 4 ballots must be cast for one of the nominees.
Are you sure? So Dan, if there was one vote for each of the 4, and then 2 more votes for one, and there were 3 votes for one.
Okay, yeah, these were not
That would
votes,
be the
yeah,
majority.
these were
I
nominations.
thought we already
Everybody's
did the
nominated.
nomination.
No, that's what we just.
Right, so what everyone
So now
submitted were
we're-
nominations, so 4 board
4 is
members
required.
were nominated.
Right, so
Okay.
4 are required to win.
And so now you're gonna actually vote on those 4 candidates,
Just-
yeah. And so in order to be elected, we need a majority of the board to cast ballots for at least one of those individuals. If there is not a majority, then the top 2 vote getters would move on to the next round, per our board policy.
Right, as of this round, in other words. So in other words, all
Oh, you're
4
right.
of the
Highest
nominees
and second.
Yeah,
are
That's right.
eligible. Does that make sense?
Right.
yeah. So we're asking each board member to vote for one of the 4 nominees.
That's why we have all these extra ballots.
In case it goes into extraneous. Here till 11.
You set, Susan? Thank you very much.
Yep.
This is my favorite concert of the year.
That's what. Was it the All Strings or?
The 6 through 12 choir concert.
That's right, we had the All Strings.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have 3 votes for Susan Fox, 3 votes for Peter Sobel, and 1 vote for Jeff Simpson. So per our policy, now we will take another vote on the top 2 vote getters, and so we ask each board member to vote for either Susan Fox or Peter Sobel for the position of president.
Oh, right. Everything else is passed down.
Okay, so we have 4 votes for Peter Sobel. So Peter Sobel is elected board president.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, thank you very much.
If you need it, it says it was script.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I only want to take this job because Joyce makes it so easy and makes little scripts for us. Thank you, Joyce. Okay, the next order of business is the election of the vice president. I would like to ask for nominations for vice president. And do we have to ask for paper ballots again?
No, the intention of the request was throughout. I'll
That's
do it
fine,
again.
you're just gonna,
Yeah.
for
I'll
all
just-
it,
yeah,
fine.
right.
Okay. So using the yellow nomination ballot for vice president, please vote for 1.
Oh, I kept these. Oh, okay.
That's all right.
Andrew's crisscrossed.
Okay, we have 4 different nominations.
Yes.
Eric Hartz, Jeff Simpson, Andrew McKinney, and Susan Fox. Anyone wanna? Okay, let it ride. Okay, on a green ballot, please vote for 1. Again, for our Eric, Jeff, Susan, and Andrew.
Thank goodness,
I
huh?
know, tell me about it.
Okay, so we have a bit of a problem. We have 3 votes for Susan Fox, 2 votes for Jeff Simpson, 2 votes for Andrew McKinney, which means all 3 of the candidates stay in the running for the next round unless anyone wants to volunteer to withdraw. Okay, taking the next green sheet. Again, vote for one of the 3. Andrew, Susan, and Jeff. There's been no change. So we have still 3 votes for Susan Fox, 2 for Jeff, and 2 for Andrew McKinney. Would anyone like to comment? Or I was going to say if the 3 candidates would like to make a
I'll
comment.
actually withdraw my name.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so please cast a ballot now. The 2 choices are Andrew and Jeff. This is the quietest thing we do all year, isn't it?
That's killing me.
I would never hide this name on it.
No, my first year on board, I didn't know we had a vice president until we voted it actually.
All right, it's unlikely we have a tie. We have 5 votes for Andrew McKinney and 2 votes for Jeff Simpson. Congratulations, Andrew. Thank you. Next, we have the election of the treasurer. Starting again with paper ballots, you have the yellow paper ballots for treasurer nomination. there are four nominations for Susan Manning. I'm sorry, my mistake, we haven't been reading the numbers for the nominations. The other nominees are Susan Fox, Jeff Simpson, and Eric Hartz.
And I'll withdraw my name.
Okay, so our three nominees are Susan Manning, Jeff Simpson, and Eric Hartz. Please use the green ballots to indicate your choice. You need a series of pneumatic tubes.
Cut the corners real quick.
All right, with 4 votes, Susan Manning is elected treasurer. Congratulations, another year. Next, we have the nominations for clerk. Again, with the green paper, green sheet. I'm sorry, the yellow sheet. Nominate your selection for clerk.
Got one more?
Yep.
I used to notice this as 2 separate meetings.
Right, we've done it both ways over the years, yes.
You don't have to though, right?
Right, we did confirm that it can be done at one.
Yeah. We have 4 nominations for clerk. Eric Hartz, Susan Fox, Jeff Simpson, and Andrew McKinney.
I withdraw, but I don't know if
Okay.
we did that because I'm,
Yeah. Right, yes,
What's
it
that?
can't be two options.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Procedurally, you can't
I-
have 2 offices.
I'm sorry,
Council president.
that is correct. Procedurally,
I
you
mean,
can't hold 2 offices.
I've been known to multitask.
And multitask. But the rules don't allow it.
That's
so
right. Actually, I don't know, okay.
You get to be.
So the nominees are Jeff Simpson, Susan Fox, and Eric Hartz. Hearing no, please mark your ballots. No. Okay, Susan Fox received 3 votes. Eric and Jeff both received 2 votes. So we'll take another ballot.
I'll withdraw my name.
So Eric withdraws, leaving 2 candidates, nominees, Susan Fox and Jeff Simpson.
Sections.
It could be, yeah, those directions. I haven't been following the script because I'm supposed to say blank is declared. Read the script.
I don't think we've ever done that.
Yes, which means we've never had officers because they haven't been officially
No.
declared. Susan Fox is elected clerk. Congratulations, Susan. Susan Fox is declared clerk, yes. All right, thank you. Next, we have the various annual procedural questions before us. Starting with item 5, the designation of depositories for school funds, and I'm just going to go ahead and move the, read the requested motion and ask for a motion of approval. The motion is for a resolution naming, for approval of a resolution naming the following institutions as depositories for school funds from the Monona School District: Monona State Bank, Summit Credit Union, PMA Financial Network Incorporated, and the statutorily authorized investment options to which they recommend, U.S. Bank and the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative. If I could have a,
So
Susan?
moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Next is the item 6, scheduling regular board meetings, dates and locations. There's a proposed meeting schedule attached in board docs to the public. Normally our meetings are held on board meetings are held on the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of each month at 7 p.m. in this district office. A few of those dates are moved around because of holidays and workshops and with the WASB convention and so on, but that's all in the schedule. And I would like a motion for approval of the schedule as presented.
So moved.
Been moved
Second?
and seconded. Discussion. Susan?
I have, Paul, did you get have you had a chance to check on the time that the senior rec starts on Wednesday, May 16th? Do you have any idea? I looked it up and I couldn't find a time for that. My point being, understanding that we would start at 6, and I know that maybe all board members don't feel this way, but senior recognition is moderately comparable to graduation. It is an evening which often goes for 3 hours, and it recognizes the seniors. And one of the things it tells you as a board member are pathways that kids have taken and kind of what it tells you a lot about what's going on in the district and where the kids are going, and it's not everything, but it's a really good lead. And I feel as a board member that our superintendent should be present at that event. It's like number 2 to graduation, and I'm concerned about us having a conflict. I think it's
have it
worth.
listed 6 o'clock start, but I don't know if that's for me, it actually starts, it's either 6 or 6:30.
6 or 6:30, so,
Right.
so even, and ours starts at 6, right? So even if it had started later, it would still be hard to get to.
Right, that's obviously
You could
the
start, I'm not done yet,
conflict.
excuse me,
Mhm.
I'm not done yet. So even if we could, one thing we might consider is starting earlier on that afternoon, if that's possible. I know we're having a guest come in and do that. But I'm gonna state that serious concern because one of those days it's gonna be your kid that's gonna be there, and you're gonna wanna be there. I think it's important that board members, be at that event, and especially the superintendent. This scheduling makes it impossible.
I could
Yeah.
comment. Okay, one thing that you should be aware, statutorily, of course, the board has to approve the meeting schedule, as you're doing, this evening, of all your regular meetings. The workshop is actually technically a special meeting, so it's on there as an information purpose. But special meetings, as you know, can be called, by the president or others. And so, we certainly can look and see if it's possible to adjust that date or time. And it wouldn't impact what you vote on tonight as far as the regular meeting schedule.
Are you suggesting changing the date for that, because that's the school receptions?
I would look, I don't know if it's possible.
Right,
I'd be
right.
glad to investigate and see if that's
Okay.
possible.
Well, yeah,
Right.
I mean, we all miss things. I'm missing, both of my kids are singing in a concert tonight. It's my favorite concert of the year.
You may have a concert a year, you will only have one senior recognition.
This is the only choir, 612 choir concert,
Well,
so.
I guess we understand the conflict. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We have a couple of weeks to look at that. And there's people coming, it might not be possible to change, but Dan can look at that. And we'll bring it back at our next board meeting with the potential schedule change.
I guess I'm just thinking, it seems to me that either we change the date or we leave it, because just pushing it to 5:30,
Yeah.
we're still gonna need a couple hours for that meeting, so I don't think that helps. I mean, I think we either change the date or we keep it on the 16th at 6. And we did notice that, as you said, it wasn't
Right.
it wasn't a regular board meeting, so that's not what we're approving, it's just this came up and we had to find a time, so. If you can find a time that we can all be here, that's fine. I think it's important that we all be here also for that, so
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
other complicating factor.
Yeah, so we'll look at it, but
Because we've had it on
We
our
got a little bit
calendars
of
for
time.
a few weeks.
we'll
so.
look at it.
May I
see if
just
there's
ask, availability of board members for that evening as early as 5 o'clock? I don't know if that's an option, but
That works for me.
that's,
It is for
Well,
me.
and senior rec does go for quite a while, so even if you come in late, you'll get to see quite a bit of the
yeah.
program.
And my understanding is that Bill Foster from School Perceptions anticipates being here about an hour. You may consider continued discussion beyond that, but as far as for the sake of his presentation and, Q&A regarding the results, that would be the anticipated
So
timeline.
if you could minimally move it to 5, that would almost effectively resolve the conflict.
What date are we talking about?
Until May
May
16th.
16th.
The, moving it to 5 would cause a conflict with me, because I have to work till 5:30 on that day.
Okay.
But,
I-
I mean, I could still come afterwards, but I don't know.
It's a very important thing.
So moving it earlier would affect that.
Okay, so we'll look at see if it's possible for an alternate date, but we will not adjust the time.
Does anybody else have a opinion or conflict with that date, since we're on this subject right now? Is there any other
We can't
conflict?
really go a whole lot later than the 16th either, right?
Yeah.
Right, because you have,
Yeah.
work to do after you get
This
that.
has been a meeting every day for a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Had some discussion, is there any additional discussion on the calendar? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the designation of legal counsel. I would ask for a motion to approval of a resolution naming the following law firms as legal counsel for the Monona Grove School District, Boardman and Clark Law Offices, WASB Counsel, Quarles and Brady, DeWitt, Ross and Stevens, SC Law Firm, Strang, Pattison, Renning, Lewis, and Lacey, SC, and Von Bryson and Roper, SC, and Breezen
Right.
and Wright Roper, SC, and Bulow, Vetter, Bekema, Olson, and Vliet, LLC. That's an awful lot of words.
It's a lot of work.
So if I could have a motion for approval of that.
We have more lawyers or teachers?
Move approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
So we can use all these throughout the year.
Yes.
So how come we only seem to use Boardman and Clerk?
Well, we effectively use almost all of these. Yeah.
Because I only hear
They're
Boardman and
different
Clerk.
specialties.
They're different
yeah.
specialties, like we have a bond counsel, somebody, things like that.
And do we ever put these up for bid?
We have not. So typically, the board has one law firm that they use as their regular
Right.
counsel, and as
That's
you mentioned, the
part of it.
others are kind of specialty things. So if you ever, as a board, wanted to change as your base legal counsel, then there would be a process to go through that. So that would be for consideration. The other thing, I mean, this has been a tradition that this board has annually approved this. There's no statutory requirement you do it, but I think it's good just for information purposes, that you do this annually. Many boards do. But
I've been less than impressed with the work Boardman gives us, so I would be open to looking at other people.
Less than impressed with what?
With the work of Boardman and Clark. So I was just curious who else is out there. And if we've ever looked at anybody else, and if we've ever bid it, because we do pay those guys quite a bit of money. And don't we have to bid stuff out?
Well,
That looks at, the question is there, it's the policy, because it's not, we don't have a contract with them for a fixed amount of money. What we have is we retain them and then we pay them as you go, and the policy only talks about bidding for when there's a contract for a amount larger than
Yeah.
15?
I'm pretty
45,
certain
whatever
that
number is
the
right now.
policy excludes legal
Legal.
Oh,
with
okay.
regard to the bidding requirements.
Okay.
But there, like I said, that would be a discussion you could have at another time if you had that, wanted to consider.
Yeah, it's certainly something we can, and the other thing, we can approve these, we do not have to
Right, we can-
use any of them during the
Right,
year.
right.
This is just, gives gives approval so that the administration knows who, there's a list of people that they can call
Right.
for particular subject. Susan?
I think really if you've had a problem with a particular opinion or a particular work of a particular person, the trouble is, like, there's a whole bunch of attorneys in the law firm. And, having been here for 10 years, I have yet to have seen Jolka give us something that wasn't legally correct and brought us as a board to consensus on the issues, helping us to understand the law. In the past, there have been other members sometimes of that firm or the other firms where we may have wanted to look for expertise in another area. Jeff Femright from Godfrey Kahn negotiated the Nuestro Mundo contract and did an excellent job with the board and doing things they wanted in that building. So if it's an individual within a firm, this just allows you to use anybody within that group. But if you have a concern, we should be hearing about that. Dan should know about that.
Peter?
I'm sorry, Susan?
Could I suggest we have that conversation at a later date? Because given the fact that we do approve all these firms, again, does not mean we use them all. It depends on what things come up during the year, so I think that merits a different conversation at a different time.
Any further comments?
That's fine.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Designation of official newspaper. I'd ask for approval of a resolution naming the Herald, Independent, and McFarland Thistle as the official newspaper of the school district.
I'll second.
Somebody's got to make a motion.
I'll move that.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Designation of membership in professional organizations. This list seems like it gets longer every year. I'd like a motion for approval of a resolution naming the following organizations as the professional organizations which the Monona Grove School District are members: the Wisconsin Association of School Boards and CISA number 2.
So move.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? The Wisconsin Association of School Boards is organization that provides support, training, legal advice, those kinds of services to school boards. CESA 2 is the State Cooperative Education Services Agency. That is a regional agencies. Number 2 is the one we're in. And what does the CESA provide for us, Dan?
Well, a number of services. So, obviously the term cooperative services, professional development opportunities. We don't contract with a lot of things. You actually approved the contract, I believe, at last meeting. So a little bit with Office of Special Education Services, but it's a pretty small contract. So really professional development throughout the year is the major thing that we have available to us. A lot of smaller districts will contract directly with them for services that they have difficulty providing themselves.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Designation of the CESA 2 representative. Now that we're a member, we have a representative who attends
Once a year.
one meeting a year.
And unless that person runs for election to their board of control.
Which I think our CESA is not up this year. I think
I'm not
they elected
aware.
somebody last
Yeah.
year, I'm pretty sure. They serve terms as well, so.
Yeah.
And our CESA representative last year was,
The gentleman from Deerfield, Tom Bush, I think.
oh,
I think.
okay. So, would anyone like this job? Would anyone like to nominate themselves or someone else for the job?
I've done this before. I mean, if no one wants to do it, before I say that, I need to double check.
I think it's a one-evening job, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It
It's on May
is-
15th.
Yeah, and we don't have anything on the 15th.
At this time,
This
we
is
do
a
not,
separate
yeah.
thing. Okay, I can do it.
All
It's
right.
just driving down there and voting.
I'd like a motion for approval of Susan Fox serving as the CESA 2 representative for the 2018-19 school year.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Designation of the Monona Grove Education Foundation representative. Dean?
I haven't done it for a couple of years. I'd like to go back and do it.
Dean would like to do it. Monona Grove Education Foundation is a organization that supports the district through fundraising and community outreach, and funds. They have annual grants and gifts to the district and supporting
Teacher
various
scholarship
programs.
awards and
Right.
other.
Exactly.
And notice they moved their meeting times now to 4 o'clock on Tuesdays. It used to be in the morning, now it's in the
Oh,
late afternoon, 4 o'clock to 5:30. Yeah,
okay.
which might mean other people could be interested in.
Yeah. And they meet monthly. Is anybody else? Susan?
No. Well, the other thing I wanted to mention was, one of the things we've been trying to do, particularly for Andrew and Eric, is that at one point, I think I was on the foundation board for at least 2 years, and Dean was on it for quite a while. And then Jeff was on it last year. But one of the things Carrie wanted us to do, and it's just a thought, and that is to rotate it a little bit more. And that thought is so that other board members have an opportunity to see what the foundation does, see how they look at grants, see how they run the fundraising side of the district. So, under that circumstance, if either of the two new board members are interested, you might want to speak up. Because Dean has done it, I've done it,
I've done it.
Jeff has
I've done
done
it.
it, Susan's done it, Peter's done it. So if either of you two wanted to, under the old premise that we used last year,
Mhm.
you could do that.
I would certainly encourage everybody to take a turn doing this.
Yeah.
If you have the time to do it, I'd be happy to relinquish that, because I think it's an important connection to make. I mean, I go to the meeting anyway when I want to.
Kind of emeritus.
What?
Yes.
Emeritus.
Yeah, but if Andrew or you or Eric would have the time, you can join the meeting. It's worthwhile.
If-
There is another one coming up though,
Yeah.
too, that you might. be
If you need if you need time to figure that out, we can also, if somebody else is interested, we can figure this
Why
out
don't
at
I
our next meeting.
withdraw my aggressive application and
They meet the second Tuesday.
In the month at 4.
Four.
Now,
Nice to meet you.
Just to be clear, they've traditionally always had met at 8 AM. For the last few
7:30.
months, they've moved it to that 4 o'clock. It's been kind of a trial basis, so it's possible they'll move it back to the 8 AM.
Oh, okay. So
They
whoever
haven't made
does it
that-
should be aware of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, actually, I would be willing to do that, and both those times would work for me.
okay. Do you want to think about it, or are you ready to
Thank you, sir.
step into the breach?
I
Step
No,
I
you're
want you
right.
got it. I'm gonna make you work, Galen.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All right, I'd like to, I'd like a motion for approval of Eric Hart serving as the Monona Grove Education Foundation representative for
I'll
the
move that.
next school year. Is there a second?
You can do
It's
that.
been moved and seconded, discussion?
Anyway.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Designation of the Wisconsin Association of School Board delegate. The delegate, the school board, WASB convention is in January of each year. They do have an assembly where they have motions brought forward where, and they vote on the various resolutions. And the delegate is our representative to that body who would contribute and vote on those.
Throw my hat in. Didn't have one, so threw my hat in.
Anyone else?
And it basically means you, these are the resolutions that inform the lobbyists for WASB.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's pretty interesting, and I also think this is one that it's good for people to do, so I think that'd be good, because you do get a real look at districts from around the state. It does, generally, they like you to be able to come that Tuesday night of it, and then it does cut into your convention time, because it's the whole afternoon of Wednesday, so you can't go to sessions during that. But I think it's pretty interesting, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I wanted it. I was thinking about
You-
it after the,
Yeah. What'll
Meeting the other day.
happen, what'll happen is in the fall, you'll get a book of resolutions, of proposed resolutions, and we'll have, in one of our meetings, we'll discuss that and board positions, and then you can, if elected, you can serve. So I'd ask for a motion approving Andrew McKinney as serving as the Wisconsin Association of School Board delegate for 2018-19.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Forgot to ask the discussion, sorry. All opposed? Motion.
Plenty of discussion.
Yeah, motion carries. Designation of Monona Grove New Teacher Project Steering Committee Representative.
I'm the current member. I can describe it.
Okay.
And I think, as others have said, meeting in the past, you ought to do it once. And I just had my meeting with the group this afternoon at the high school. Lisa was there. And basically, these are some, it's a meeting of experienced teachers who take on the responsibility of mentoring and coaching new teachers, all the way from offering, teaching advice and helping them navigate their system, particularly in the first year. This afternoon, I think it's a way to see how they're engaging our new teachers. This afternoon, they were really planning the back to school time next fall, and I think is when I was new on the board, I think the advice was you want to do that once at least, and it's a good experience. So I would suggest, if you haven't done it, or one of you who haven't done it and would like to do it, it's once a month, and it's what is it?
Is it-
What is
Yeah,
it,
this
Lisa?
said they
About
meet
4
qu-
o'clock in the afternoon?
They do meet once a month, Dean, right? This says quarterly on the,
Yeah,
have they changed it?
Yeah.
4 to 5:30, but they've shifted away from once a month.
Okay, so it is just quarterly? Okay, so it's just 4 meetings, basically.
Okay, it sounded like,
Okay.
maybe I went there more times than I needed to.
Right.
That's why there was nobody there.
Well, they may have just.
Okay, okay, well, it is quarterly, and it's a good meeting,
It's really good.
and just a listening to it.
here it comes again.
Who would like to do that? Okay,
Put
Andrew.
my hat in.
That'd be good.
Anyone
I
else?
think I've done it too, so I think that's great.
I've also done it, I got to do it 2 years in a row, and the other thing that's really interesting about this is that as a board, we passed a policy that requires that we have a full-time teacher, mentor, leader So a teacher actually comes out of the classroom and leads this group as a paid position. And they help kind of run that with Lisa. And it's really an experience board members should have, because it's really a neat thing. And it's a commitment that this district has made to all of our new teachers. It's pretty cool.
Hats in.
All right, anyone else? I'd like a motion to approve Andrew McKinney.
Also move.
Fine. Serving as the Monona Grove New Teacher Project Steering Committee Representative. Been moved, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So, okay, designation of board legislative liaison. Last year, were you?
I've done it like every year,
You
if
wanna
somebody else
desc-
wants to do it.
Would you
be awesome.
describe the position for us? That's all I'm
well,
asking.
It basically is tracking the legislation, and there is a WSB legislative conference, I forget where they have it, Stevens Point, I think, usually in November, that I always would try to go to, and then they also have a day at the Capitol that a lot of us have gone to in March, I believe is when that is. But it's kind of tracking legislation and bringing it to the board's attention when there's something that we should have an opinion on. I've written testimony, have spent a lot of hours down there testifying. That's kind of what it involves. But it's interesting, but if someone else wants to take it over, that would be fine with me. I mean, I'll stop there. I'd be willing to do it again, but I wouldn't mind handing it off to somebody, because it can be a fair amount of work depending on how busy they are, so.
Susan?
The other thing that role seemed to have entailed this year was being a part of the community engagement committee. And they reported out to that committee at their committee meetings, and then reports out to the board at least once a month about all the legislative action. So if you have a question about a particular legislative issue, you had somebody that you could immediately go to and kind of get a feel for how it fit with the district and how that would affect us. And that's been very helpful to us as a board, that position.
Susan?
Yeah, well, we did talk about, I know Carrie and I had thoughts about whether it should continue to be part of the community engagement committee. That would be a conversation for down the road, because we didn't feel like it necessarily fit very well in that committee, particularly other than just reporting. And the practice hasn't been to report once a month, whether that's what the board wants, we could set it up that way. But anyway, so, anybody else interested?
Is anybody interested? Eric's interested.
All right.
Anyone else? All right, I'd ask for a motion to approve Eric Hart's
So moved.
serving as legislative liaison for 2018-19.
So moved.
Andrew moved it?
Already.
I
Sorry,
moved it.
second.
And it's been moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Designation of membership in Wisconsin Public Education Network. Susan, do you want to describe the PN?
Yeah, it's kind of described here. It is a grassroots organization of a lot of school districts and other entities, actually, the informal, nonpartisan alliance of districts. Also committed to advocacy for public schools, basically, and so it's kind of related to the legislative liaison piece. Our membership basically helps support the group. Some of us have been able to go to their things. They have a conference every year in August, and I can't remember the date right now, but I will send that out. There's a website. They've actually increased in strength in that it's been really successful. It started and went on here it was mostly just a number of us, kind of individuals from different districts who had been legislative liaisons or had been interested in that kind of thing, getting together, and it's really grown into fostering community organizations in Wauwatosa, very active parent community group in Wauwatosa in support of schools. Appleton has a very active group. Eau Claire, throughout the state there have been, so it's really been productive, and I think it's a great thing for us to support. They don't seem to send out emails anymore. You have to go to their website, but I could send us more information. Anyway, I would recommend we continue to join this group to support it.
Heather, who runs it, is probably the biggest individual supporter of public education in the state.
She's done their new executive director, she's done a terrific
Is that
job.
a
Well, she's
better-
not new anymore, but she's great.
Not a better person, more fit for the job, probably, in all Wisconsin.
I would agree with that.
I'd like a motion for approval of membership in the WPEN for 2018-19.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this point, we'll proceed to the order of business. That's usually in just our regular board meeting. The first, item D, is if there's any proposed modifications to the order of business. At this point in the meeting, we do I'll introduce this because sometimes there are items on our agenda that are of particular public interest, or we have participants who are for discussion that may have other schedules, or we want to have, let them participate and then move on with their evenings. And so if there's anything of particular attention that you would like moved to the top of the schedule, for example, now is the time we can do that modified schedule. Does anybody have any? Susan?
I have a question in relation to that. Dan, do we have anybody that's presenting the resolution for inclusion under the state of Wisconsin deferred compensation, or was that PowerPoint just a resource?
Just a resource.
Oh, okay, fine. No, I don't have any.
Okay. In which case, we move to public appearances. We have 4 public appearances tonight. Per our policy, speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. And I would note that because of the open meetings law, in general, we can't have substantive discussions on issues that are brought forward to us during public appearances. We can ask questions and clarifying questions about the topics before us, but because generally these are things that are not noticed on our agenda, we can't have a substantive discussion. The first public appearance is Janine Comita. If the speakers wanted to come forward, take a seat, please give us your name and address when you start.
Janine Comita, 402 Dublin Circle, Cottage Grove. Reflecting on the last school board meeting, it has become clear that the school board and school district are incompetent and that the members of the board do not know what their responsibilities and role are when it comes to serving our school district. Wisconsin State Statute 12012 defines the school board's duties, and in item 2 and 2M it states that you are to visit and examine the schools of the school district, advise the school teachers and administration regarding the instruction, government, and progress of the pupils, and exercise general supervision over such schools. And beginning in 2014-15, evaluate the effectiveness of each teacher and principal employed by the school district using either the system established under section 115.415.2 or 115.415.3. So when Susan Manning stated at the last meeting that she was, quote, elected to follow the statutes, the board policies, and rules that govern what we do today, unquote, she unfortunately was not well informed about what those statutes and policies state. From this statute and School Board Policy 2210, Curriculum Development, it is clear that removing To Kill a Mockingbird from the English 9 and English 9 Honors Curriculum is clearly part of your, quote, board governance role, unquote. Furthermore, this board has further failed by not enforcing numerous school board policies and executing the processes defined in those policies in a timely manner. I agree with Jeff's comment at the last meeting when he said, quote, I'm also extremely disappointed that this issue has come to this point in front of us, unquote. Considering the School Board Policy 5517 Student Anti-Harassment Policy states, it is the policy of the Board of Education to maintain an educational environment that is free from all forms of harassment. This policy applies to conduct occurring in any manner or setting over which the board can exercise control. The board will not tolerate any form of harassment and will take all necessary and appropriate actions to eliminate it. The board will vigorously enforce its prohibition against harassment. The board will investigate all allegations of harassment, and in those cases where harassment is substantiated, the board will take immediate steps designed to end the harassment, prevent its reoccurrence, and remedy its effects. Individuals who are found to have engaged in harassment will be subject to appropriate disciplinary actions. Harassment means any threatening, insulting, or dehumanizing gesture, use of data or computer software, or written, verbal, or physical conduct directed against a student based on one or more of the student's protected classes that has the effect of substantially interfering with the student's educational performance opportunities or benefits of. Racial harassment occurs when the conduct has the effect of interfering with the individual's educational performance, of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive learning environment, or of interfering with one's ability to participate in or benefit from a class of an educational program or activity. Such harassment occurs where conduct is directed at the characteristics of a person's race or color, such as racial slurs. I do not understand why this process has been dragged out, considering the school district was informed of this harassment on December 21st, 2017, and this policy is not open to interpretation. It is very clear what constitutes racial harassment and your responsibility and how to respond to it. Where are the appropriate actions to eliminate? Where are the disciplinary actions towards the staff and administration? What has been to stop it? One word, nothing. The policy clearly states the board will take immediate steps designed to end the harassment, prevent its reoccurrence, and remedy its effects. And here we are on April 25th, 2018, and no action has been taken. So as a taxpaying resident of the school district with children in the schools, I'm publicly asking, when will you, the Monona Grove School Board, start to do your job and start to hold all employees of the school district accountable to the statutes and board policies you are elected to enforce? I asked this on January 24th and never received a response, so I'm asking again this new board to give me a response.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Stephan Way.
One of those funky names.
Peter and Jeff, could you flip-flop your plaque?
Oh. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephan Way. I live at 100 Coyle Parkway, Cottage Grove. I'm part of a growing coalition of parents who are concerned with the chasm of the district's achievement gap over the last 3 years as identified by the Wisconsin Department of Education. No matter our age, we are all students and we are all teachers. We understand that the teachers of our district have time and again been negatively impacted by the decisions of our state lawmakers, the government, and at times the coverage of the media. My wife and I have positively supported every referendum in the district to gain funding for public schools. We have donated thousands of dollars through various school events such as the Taylor Prairie Fall Festival. But it will take more than money to address the district's achievement gap. The teachers have been asked to do more with less for well over a decade. The teachers of our district are the experts at mapping curriculum through multiple disciplines across the K-12 cycle. We are stating our intent to invest our time and our knowledge to support the curriculum outside of the standard school hours to help address the achievement gap. Tonight you'll be elected a new school board president. Our coalition asks you to lead the school board and our community to do 3 things. First, we'd like the establishment of a resolute goal to reduce the achievement gap by 25% during the school years of fall 2018 through the spring of 2020. Second, we'd like you to establish and participate in forums for teachers, parents, students, and the public and administrators to exchange ideas to understand and support the goal through actionable and measurable steps. I believe I heard discussions earlier about such committees existing. Finally, I'd like to ensure greater student involvement by supporting student organizational bodies and activities. I believe first and foremost, there is supposed to be a spot on the school board for a student. I understand that the student has not come forward, so I would like leadership to encourage students to participate in these activities as well. It's a great learning opportunity for them. Our coalition originated from the concerns with the narrative and the language contained in To Kill a Mockingbird contrasted against the school demographics and the school policies. This is still our primary concern. I hope that the school board will demonstrate much needed leadership to amplify the voices of those underrepresented by stating support of our request to remove To Kill a Mockingbird from the curriculum. As a progressive white American, we need to do more than talk about diversity. We need to make real change through action. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Michelle Ruda.
Michelle Ruda, 100 Coyle Parkway. Many people know me as Michelle Ruda Way. My legal name's Michelle Ruda, though. All right, so to piggyback onto this, and I'm reading from my heart more than my recycled paper's chicken scratch here. But this topic about To Kill a Mockingbird, I'm speaking on behalf of the coalition of parents, passionate group of parents willing to stick our necks out. This isn't easy for any of us, and my hands are shaking. But we're committed to supporting the closing or change the cycle of the achievement gap. Right now, it's going in a direction that's not where any of us want it to go. So let's take one small step. This is a nugget, just a small step, and let's show something tangible that we can show the community to take it to Kill a Mockingbird off the required list for ninth graders. We're not saying take it out of keep it in the library, keep it available, just take it off required. So please, in the next meeting, make the decision. It's in 2 weeks, let's just stick a fork in it and get it done. Let's make the right decision. This will be just the first check mark on the list of us working together on taking care, let's include us in taking care of this achievement gap. I mean, I'm just looking at this, gray is white, these other colors are non-white kids. That makes me sad. One of my kids, my kids are represented in these other colors here. And a lot of our friends' kids are too. So I can't say this is okay. So we are here to help. We are here to make a change. To Kill a Mockingbird is the first step.
Thank you. Last one I have is Chiyama Kamita.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. My name is Chiyama Kamita. I am at 402 Dublin Circle, Cottage Grove. We are a strong parent coalition. We are very strong, and we are growing every day. And we are here to say that you keep the district accountable towards its harassment policies, that you take seriously the impacts that you have on our children. We are here to say, reduce that achievement gap by 25% by the end of the next school year. And we are very serious about this request. We are here to say, show tangible steps to show that you are serious about your own strategic plan, which says guarantee equity. Last time I said that we are parents here and we are extending our helping hand to the community. We're just making a lot of elections of different committees. I would like to nominate myself to be part of the Community Engagement and Policy Review Committee. So I hope you vote on that. That's just tongue in cheek, I know that. So institutional racism is a very real thing in Wisconsin. Fox 6 reported that Wisconsin is ranked #1 in the nation for inequality. Okay, #1 in the nation. Okay, so we know that whether implicitly or explicitly expressed, institutional racism does occur in this district. Okay, Black and Latino kids are not naughtier or more prone to crimes than white kids. It's been shown by the American Psychological Association and by the CDC. Susan Manning ran on the Achievement Gap platform saying that we would do everything within our means to improve the student achievement gap, to improve the student achievement gap. Not once did I hear, and I attended all the board meetings this past year. Probably the first parents to do that. Maybe there was some out there, but I think I was the only one. And there was no serious discussions about the achievement gap at all. So the Equity Alliance went to all those meetings. none of the parents' input was taken when that email was sent out about what the Equity Alliance was going to do. Whenever discussions get tough about racism and race, the district shuts down and lets people out. That's what happened with that Equity Alliance. The parents were supposed to come back and have a meeting again this month, and that was canceled, and things are going to be done in some other way. No input from the parents that met all those months at the Equity Alliance was taken in. So, you know, in conclusion, I would like to say that since the school district has not made any efforts to address this issue of this achievement gap, we as parents are taking on the responsibility of helping the district, of holding the district accountable for addressing and improving this achievement gap. Work with us. We are here, we're not going away, and we're growing stronger. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask
Yeah,
a
you can ask a question.
Has the group had an opportunity to see the action plan under the, I know Rhoda was on the committee that helped develop the priorities, the strategic plan. And part of that focus was, a major part of the focus of the strategic plan was to deal with this challenge. And there are specific action plans, and I agree with you because I've asked to have those presented to the board. And actually, we've done that in, Dan, am I correct, 2 workshops, right? We spent 2 workshops reviewing. One was an overview of the plan and what they've been working on this year. And the second one was specific buildings in relation to the plan. So sometimes because it's in a workshop rather than a board meeting, which to us is a regular board meeting, it may be that information is covered there.
So I would like to answer your question. Over the last 3 years, the rates of the achievement gap has skyrocketed. It's not going down. So whatever you're doing in those committees or behind closed doors is not working. You need to change what you're doing. Also, the parents in our coalition are members of multi-million-dollar organizations, and we know how to run strategy. And the way that this strategy is laid out related to the achievement gap within the school district does not allow for you to be able to make any substantive changes to that achievement gap. You are supposed to, basically, none of the action items that are on there will allow you to make any changes. You first have to admit that there is institutional racism. You need to make changes to the curriculum and to policies that support all the students. You need to change your assumptions, beliefs, and attitudes about African American and Latino and all the other minority groups. And then you need to remove the barriers that steer minorities away from honors courses.
Have you reviewed the Verona work that they've done in encouraging minorities into advanced placement work? We've studied some of that. I don't know if you have a thought on it.
I just gave you some concrete ideas.
You're talking about
the parents that spoke just gave you some concrete ideas as to how this can be achieved. And we are here, we are strong, and we are asking that you take your own pledge of closing this achievement gap seriously and move on it by the end of this coming school year. That means that over the summer, a lot of work needs to be done in changing what the curriculum looks like.
Susan, you mentioned the strategy, and we had a previous conversation. I was not able to find that on the district website. So if it's there, if you can get that to me, I will share that with our group, as well as any other material that you'd recommend for us to review. And we will take a look at that additional material. As I said, we would work on.
Do we have an easy access to the strategic plan or any of the action plans?
On the website, yeah.
It's right there, How much more is there?
I'm looking for a PDSA, you guys, you know what I'm looking for, okay? I'm looking.
We have many documents.
Yeah.
In case you share those with us.
The data is shown, and it's the proof is in the pudding. You are getting worse, not better, which means that you need to change what you're doing. And we are here to help you, ask for our help, and we will gladly support what you're doing. Work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen? Hang on. I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Just want to stand up myself a little bit here. Say that we haven't done anything, we haven't discussed it. I've made a commitment to push more for restorative justice, and as far as I know from all the data I've seen, there isn't really anything that attacks the achievement gap more than a truly commitment to restorative justice, to having a restorative community-built schools.
We're getting the risk of having discussions, substantive
Right.
discussions
I know,
about
I
things that are not on the
say that-
agenda, so.
That there
we
have
can-
been occasional discussions.
Right. We can discuss this at a later date when we have agendized it.
The data shows that it's not working.
Right.
Steve, can you make sure that we have your email address? And
Yes.
Michelle? Thank you. All right, thank you. We're next moving on to the consent agenda. For the new members, the consent agenda is things that we usually come up every month, like school admittance and vouchers payable and so on, that we don't get into details of. If there is an item, and we won't discuss the consent agenda normally, if there's an item on the consent agenda that you believe should be pulled out for individual discussion, just raise that issue and we'll automatically pull it off, approve everything else, and then we'll have a discussion about anything that you're interested in. Barring that, I'd like a motion for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So, doesn't matter.
Jeff and
I'll second.
Susan, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item G, recognitions. Do we have any items there?
Do not this evening.
Susan?
Want to recognize the group that fundraised. And what happens in the consent agenda is that sometimes you don't see things that are nice, and so sometimes we'll pull those out in an actual recognition piece. And $6,753 was donated by the Glacial Drumlin School PTO for the Glacial Drumlin School playground. So I would recognize that.
There's a lot of hard work behind that.
Yeah, that's nice.
It is, I know.
Thank you, Cottage Grove PTO.
Yes.
All right. Anything else? Thank you. Correspondence and announcements. I don't think there's anything. That brings us to item I, administrative reports, starting with Dan, superintendent's report.
Okay. Just two procedural things. And just to reiterate what was in your board memo, that as you recall, at the April 11th board meeting, on the agenda was to review instructional materials complaint appeal. A decision that was not reached that evening. Our new board members have been given materials to review, so tentatively we plan on having that on the agenda for the May 9th regular meeting. I'll certainly consult with our board president to confirm that, but that would be the tentative plan at this time. And then we'll notify that, well in advance. Secondly, facilities survey. I just updated this today. We're up to 1,586 community responses, and had a conference call with Bill Foster from School Perceptions yesterday. So right now we're at about 15% response rate, which is excellent. He predicts that we're going to end up between that 18 and 20%, which is well above average what most communities have. And so certainly we're getting the response that we need to have accurate, reliable data. So and there'll be another, as much as we can, sending out reminders. But again, the responses, the number of responses is very good at this point.
If someone didn't receive the mailing, if someone didn't receive the mailing, what can they do to fill out the survey?
To call Joyce, and she'll either give them a hard copy to them, or she can give them the code to do an electronic survey.
Okay.
And
So-
I can attest to that because we didn't receive one.
Yeah, I've had some people say that they haven't received one or didn't see it one way or the other. Dean?
How is the response rate compared to Monona Cottage Grove? Is that been
I don't have that data right now. I think, I don't recall if I saw that in the report at all or not.
Well, you wouldn't even really be able to do it if you, especially if it's someone doing it online.
Yeah, I mean, we will have that when it's done.
Right.
Because that was one of the questions, you know, as far as residency, so we will be able to segregate that way, but I don't have that.
That was a categorical question.
Yeah, so I don't have that information right now.
But not until we're done, we have all the responses and they analyze the questions.
And they are due by the 30th.
Yes, yeah.
My only reason I asked ahead of time is if you're seeing some imbalance in that, you can make some additional effort
Yeah.
in the community that is slower.
So yeah, I do not have it.
I have a question.
Eric.
Are those results or responses going to be available that the board can see them?
Yes, so that's that special meeting we were talking about on May 16th, is where the group that's running the survey for us will actually be present to not only share, so you not only get a copy of the results, but they'll be there to, talk about them. And
Okay, thank you. Next is Jared, Director of Business Services.
Community engagement? Isn't that-
Nope.
Oh, what?
And we're
Sorry,
still
I
on
skipped
administrative
ahead.
reports.
Sorry, I skipped down too far.
Yeah.
All right.
The preliminary budget calendar.
I can't get to go back up again.
So on board docs is the budget planning calendar. At the next board meeting, we'll go in depth and start talking about what we're doing internally and what we're anticipating for budget, but I figured that it would be nice just to give our 2 new board members one night just to get acquainted with what's happening. So the first item that you've seen with the 2018-19 budget is the budget planning calendar. And so this pretty much just lays out what happens during our budget process. Currently what's happening is our buildings are very actively working on their zero-based budgeting for their buildings. We will, starting this Friday, we'll start meeting with each of the buildings and the principals leading to next week. All those budgets are being built in Google Docs, and so it's a very intensive process that they go through and the teachers go through to identify what they need for next year. Then we will come back next month and start talking about what we anticipate due to the fact that we are entering into the second year of the state budget. So we do know that we will receive a per pupil aid increase of $204. However, there's no increase on the revenue limit, and I'll talk through all that at the next board meeting. But I thought this was a good start, especially for our new board members. Thank you.
And if anyone, but especially the new board members, would like to understand the budget process and how this works in Wisconsin, because it's not straightforward in any way, please, I'm sure Jared would have time for you to discuss that.
I would love to.
He likes nothing better.
We're going to call.
Actually, I will mention this just because this will come up later, but at the state convention in January, there's a pre-session on the Tuesday afternoon on its Education Finance 101. It's really good. I went to it a couple times because that's what the first couple of years I was on the board, I went to all the financial ones just to understand it because it's so complicated.
Mhm.
So if that'll be, we can talk about that again later, but you might just keep that in the back of your mind that if you're going Tuesday of that week, it's worthwhile.
Okay, thank you. Next, item J, board reports, starting with the Personnel Committee. Dean?
Yes, we had a meeting and we, Dan, you can add on, Susan, you can add on, Peter. We basically dealt with the paraprofessional salary proposals. We discussed the teacher salary questions, and I believe we resolved 2 or 3 of the last issues of language on the handbook language and so forth. Susan, you want to add anything more?
It'd be nice to have those 4. I actually didn't bring my personnel meeting, but there are actually 4 items. We probably had 20 that we started with, that we went through, and the 4 items that were brought back to us from the teachers were items we've already discussed, and we actually, at least one of them, we thought we'd come to consensus on, and now the numbers changed a little bit. So those 4 items that were brought from the teachers kind of on Monday are on our agenda to be discussed at the next personnel meeting. We didn't go into that in depth.
And the teachers won't be
Do you want to
getting.
report?
I can just share briefly what those topics were, if that's,
Okay.
yeah, so there's discussion regarding the retirement benefits. Of course, we have a board-approved retirement plan, and so a couple items in there for possible revision. Also discussion regarding hourly pay for workshops attendance, as well as discussion regarding overload pay for teachers. And then lastly, some discussion about additive pay. So all compensation-related items, some of which are part of the compensation plan, some part of retirement plan. None of them are technically in the handbook, but there are certainly items that would be under purview of the Personnel Committee to make recommendations regarding.
I'm not sure where the line is on this, because I'm not sure. We talked about it in closed, and then we talked about it open. Does the board need an update on where we are on negotiations with the paraprofessionals?
And that'd be a closed session discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
The fact that we're a year behind.
I guess I can state for the record that, yeah, we're still in the process of bargaining
The current year.
the 17-18
Yep.
bargain. In fact, we've not yet reached
I
the
just
settlement.
didn't know if
Yeah.
the other board members were aware, because that's an important piece that.
Yeah.
Okay, Communication Government Relations Committee, Susan?
Okay, that committee met on Tuesday, April 17, and basically, the report that Chair Carrie Robbins submitted was the same one that we got at the board the previous week, so she kind of reviewed that. It was sort of a catch-up and just general summation, and I would say the committee as a whole felt really good about the work that the committee did this year and strongly recommended having citizen members again. We talked about that a lot. There was Carrie expressed some concern that it wouldn't continue in that vein. I think it set such a strong precedent. I would certainly hope, and I think Andrew would
Yes.
probably agree, that that was an excellent way to go. We talked about ways to expand that membership, and she has, and I didn't keep this, I don't think, but she had, it might be in the minutes, she had asked all the committee members who was interested in returning and who might consider it, and we did get some names of people who wanted to continue on. And so the new, our policy on committees is the same committee goes forward until the new committees are formed. But that one I would assume wouldn't meet again until the new committee is formed, but anyway, that was the main thing.
Doesn't have a chair at the moment.
Right, doesn't have a chair at the moment, although that could be remedied, but I think it's at this point, the understanding of the committee was it would kind of wait and reform with additional members. So there weren't any distinct, the next steps mostly related to the outreach and involvement of the underserved community, and we talked about that at the previous meeting and generated a lot of questions and things we thought would be next steps in that area, and that was kind of the one area that all of it is ongoing, so I don't know that there were any unresolved steps, but the committee would take up that information. And I think all of us appreciated Carrie's leadership on that committee, and that's about it. Unless you have anything else, Andrew?
No, I think
That's pretty much.
you covered it all, just doing that. I think that we need to continue with it, and I think we need to expand more members.
Right.
Instead of 10 that we have, I think we need to expand more to get more of the community involved.
Susan?
I just wanted to encourage the board president to appoint a chair and continue to support a previous board position that used a process and clearly included community members on that committee and got that moving fairly quickly. Because I've attended and watched those meetings, and to see the community there and attending and being involved to me, was one of the goals of that committee. And I think they, as a committee, had great success with that. And I would encourage us to continue to do that. I think the board direction on that as a standing committee is fairly clear. But it's gonna be, again, we need a chair who gets that process to put the community members back on there and add new ones to fill that out and expand it. Because until you get a chair appointed that starts getting that done, we're in limbo on that.
Is the, when was the last meeting of the?
17th.
The 17th, and that's about when they usually meet you?
Well, there was, that was the other thing. Carrie wanted to be twice a month, and we basically did that, but there was very strong consensus of the committee members that that was too much, that people would rather have it once a month. So all of that, I think the committee going forward, it should be, it's just like every other committee. It should get reformed, I mean, I assume you'll be asking tonight for people to submit their committee requests, and then at some point you'll be appointing the new committees, and then at that point, this is a conversation for that committee to have, whatever board members are on it, to have to move on from there.
Okay.
So there was nothing urgent that had to be done in the near future.
Without discussion, I would like to ask board members to consider committee assignments for this next year. Those new members especially, I would encourage you to discuss with existing committee members what the roles of those committees are, and roles and responsibilities, so you can establish your interests. I'd also like all of board members to think about our committees in general and what additional needs, issues, and so on you believe that we have holes or we need to address, and if we need to make any changes to our current committee structures to do that, if there's anything that you think we need to do to change to address, and we'll discuss that at our next meeting. We can't have a discussion about it now, isn't it? We're not noticed to have that discussion. Dean?
I cannot say I think we need a curriculum and programs committee.
No, you cannot.
Okay, I'm sorry then.
We're not noticed to do that.
No, but.
I'm just asking you to think about it because we're going to bring it, we'll have that discussion next meeting.
I'm sorry I raised it.
Okay. Susan?
Yes, I've been walking the line a little bit lately. It might be helpful, particularly for the two new members, to understand, we basically have standing committees, and then as a board, we can also establish a committee, another standing committee, and/or a special committee that maybe only meets for that year, or then you can continue it. So if there's a special interest that you want to study for a year, or possibly longer, you can make that recommendation to the board as well. So you can look at the list of the standing committees we have right now. You can look at the standing committees that we've had in the past. We used to have a business services, and then the composition. So basically we have a chair and two board members on each committee. And before it used to be a chair, two board members, and two committee members.
It's in
So
the policies.
it's up to the board. Yeah.
For a later discussion, when it's agendized.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is possible action items, starting with the Police School Resource Officer Program Agreement for 2017 to 2020.
Okay, so we currently have two separate agreements. We have one with the city of Monona, and a separate one with the village of Cottage Grove for our two resource officers. If you recall, we added the second officer just past year with the village of Cottage Grove. The original agreement with the city of Monona included language that allowed that officer to be able to work in our Cottage Grove schools with the jurisdiction and so on. And now that, and then the Cottage Grove one, I guess the bottom line is the fact that we had two separate agreements and they weren't necessarily identical. So we've been working with both the city of Monona and village of Cottage Grove and our attorneys to write one agreement that would be between all three institutions, the district, the village, and the city. And so it doesn't really change it does not change the program, it just cleans up the language so we have one agreement. Plus the city of Monona one was due to expire at the end of this year anyway. And so we're asking for a new 3-year agreement with both municipalities, actually to incorporate our current year and then into the next 2 years. The city of Monona, the city council has already approved it. Not sure exactly where we're at with the status of the village of Cottage Grove, but my understanding is that they will approve it shortly as well. So we're asking for approval of the revised agreement this evening.
Susan?
I move approval of a police school resource officer agreement between the district, city of Monona, and village of Cottage Grove as presented.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? That's easy. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, resolution for inclusion of the State of Wisconsin Deferred Compensation Program. Dan?
Actually, Jared will take
Jared?
this one.
All right, so as I had stated in the background on board docs, currently the district has a 403B program which allows our staff to contribute money outside of the district's retirement plan in addition to outside of the Wisconsin retirement system. Part of our philosophy or part of our strategic plan in the business services department and HR side of things is to really help build more education and more opportunities for our staff to set money aside in areas that help them as staff members. And so with the 403B, we do offer about 13 vendors where staff can participate with. However, the 403B program is regulated by the department or the IRS, which sets limits. So as an individual this year, if you didn't do all the extra catch up and stuff like that because of age, you could contribute up to about $18,500. The district at the same time can contribute additional money. So between the combination of those two, you can do about $50,000. However, as individuals perhaps get closer to retirement or planning for retirement, what the Wisconsin Deferred Compensation Plan, or you might have heard it called a 457 plan, is another avenue for staff to put money away, either pre-tax or post-tax, through a program that is completely voluntary. What we like about the Wisconsin Deferred Compensation Plan, it is monitored and run by the Department of Employee Trust Funds, which is where Wisconsin retirement system is run out of as well. The difference between the 403B plans is we have 13 vendors. Individuals need to work with each of those vendors, and each of those vendors charges a different fee. We as the employer cannot tell an individual that they should necessarily go to one or the other unless we went down to one specific vendor, but we have not done that. We want to give the opportunity to our staff to choose where they want to invest their money. However, with the Wisconsin Deferred Compensation Plan, it is one fee based on the amount of dollars that you have invested with them, and it's laid out up front, and it's the buying power of the state of Wisconsin. The Wisconsin Deferred Compensation Plan allows an individual to contribute up to $18,000. It doesn't have necessarily that concept of the 403B where you can do as an employee a certain amount, and then on top of that, the max that you can do with the Wisconsin Deferred Compensation as a normal, as a normal situation would be $18,000. So as we continue to build, we believe this is another one of those foundation blocks that we can put in place for our staff. And between the 403B program, the Wisconsin Deferred Compensation, the Wisconsin Retirement System, and the district's retirement system or plan, we believe that we're allowing our staff to have resources that they can set money aside for future planning. This doesn't change our current plan for retirement for our staff. What this does is this is a voluntary program that allows staff another option, financial option, and it doesn't cost the district any funds, any money, other than they are willing to come in and do the education on behalf of the district.
Susan?
Jared, doesn't the addition of the 457B allow them to effectively max an additional $18,000?
Yes.
So for instance, if you only have the 403B, you're maxed at $18,000. But if you have both, you can, if you choose to, you can up the maximum amount that you're contributing to your retirement plan.
Correct.
By adding this additional plan.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure people understood that. Because they've done this at the university. And the participation, particularly in the older age group who's concerned about their retirement plan, I would say 50s and up, has been very strong. And it's been through the state plan,
Yep.
the ETF.
Yes.
So, and they've had the work with that plan with ETF has been very positive.
It's a good department to work with.
Susan?
I move approval of the resolution for inclusion under the State of Wisconsin Deferred Compensation Program.
As presented.
As presented.
Yep.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the T4K provider contracts for 2018-19.
Hey,
The same.
Yeah, so as a reminder, we have on-site 4K programs at Tiller Prairie School and Winnequa School, and then we have 3 community sites. And annually, we ask the board to approve contracts with those sites. Jared works, in preparing those contracts. If there's any questions on that part, he can answer, but it's just, there's no changes essentially to the contracts from the previous year.
Susan?
And just to add for the new board members primarily, when this 4K program was started, there was strong agreement that we wanted to, that we wanted it to be partially community-based as well as in the school system, that we didn't want to undermine existing, child cares and nursery schools and that kind of thing. So this is, part of the philosophy of our program is to include these sites, and these are the same ones that we've been using. Right, but just for clarification. And so, so given that, I just go on the floor.
Yes.
I will move approval of the contracts for the 2018-19 school year with Kids Safari Learning Center, Learning Ladder Preschool and Childcare, and Immaculate Heart of Mary School as presented.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Susan?
I would also add that if you have any particular questions, Connie is actually here, and she oversees that program. And it's my impression from the families that use not only the school-based programs, but the outsourced programs, that the oversight, particularly in relationship to use of certified teachers in the programs and the teaching of those programs, has been excellent. Yes. Comment? Yeah.
I agree.
You get the same feedback. Yeah. I have not heard, the only mildly negative thing is occasionally we get filled in the school sites. But then, once they resource out, they're happy it's gonna be, yeah.
They love their teachers.
Yeah, we've had great support on those sites.
Any other discussion? It has been moved and seconded, right?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the student fee schedule.
I'll ask Jared to present that.
All right, the 2018-19 student fees, we are not proposing any increases to any of the fees. Typically, we do go through a process, especially on the school nutrition side, that we have to go through a tool with the USDA to ensure that what we are charging matches what our expenditures and our revenues look like. However, that tool has not necessarily been released. They have released the sample today, obviously after we had put this there. But the way that we are operating our school nutrition, it's in the positive, in the red, so we do not need to increase that. And we believe that we can pass that savings along to our family. So there will be absolutely no increase to the 2018-19 student fee. The one change that I do want to point out to you is that if you look at the Chromebook protection, we implemented that last year. And this will be the second year, and our Chromebooks are 1-to-1, and at the 7th through 12th grade level, those went home. And so last year we provided that for 7th through 12th grade. Next year, 6th grade is being brought into the opportunity to take those home. So you'll see that it says grade 6, where last year it said grade 7. But overall, there are no increases to fees, and that's an optional fee.
I'd look for a motion for approval of the 2018-19 student fee schedule as presented.
So moved.
Been moved and
Second?
seconded. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion items, we don't have any tonight. Meeting dates coming up, policies meeting tomorrow. The members of that committee are,
Jeff, Susan, and myself.
okay, so we can
And we-
continue.
We, yeah, we'll
Yes,
continue that
yes, we
committee,
are.
the agenda's
Yeah.
posted, the policies are all linked on board docs, so.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify, it is a 9 AM meeting.
Right.
In my email memo, I had the wrong time. It's a 9 AM meeting.
Okay. Then we have our next school board meeting is May 9th at 7 PM here. And we have a workshop to review this facilities survey on the 16th, which we'll talk about the date, time, and then the May 23rd is the next board meeting.
Peter,
Yes, correct.
I can make that 16th date work. If I'm the only one, we should
Early?
probably just keep it and make it work. And I know you mentioned before.
Moving the time up, you mean? You can make 6 PM.
I can make 5 if you want. I can shift some things
How
around.
about Jeff, though?
I don't want to be this.
5 is always really early.
Yeah, I was
for
gonna
me.
say, it's usually not good for Jeff.
Yeah.
5:30.
I can make whatever.
All right.
so.
Just so you know,
Yeah.
I just wanted to put that out there. I don't
So,
want to.
so can I be clear, if we cannot find an alternative date, there would be a preference to see if we could at least start a little earlier?
30 minutes earlier, especially if it's only gonna be an hour,
Mhm.
save me a seat with
It's not gonna only be
Well,
an hour.
yeah. We'll look at it.
Okay.
Because it depends on our the facilities, the school perceptions.
Right. Yeah, and also remember, all the members of the Facilities Advisory Committee are invited to attend that evening as well.
Oh, and they've already been notified?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think that's a mess, but whatever.
All right. Okay, the next item is that we have some items for closed session discussion, so I'd like a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 1981, parens 1C, and 1985, parens 1C and E, for consideration of, I have to read these, don't I? Approval of the April 11th, 2018 closed session minutes, compensation for Director of Communications and Community Agent position, deliberation of purchasing public properties, and deliberation on selling public properties. Any motion?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, starting with Dean.
Aye.
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 Great. We're in closed session, and we will adjourn after our closed session with no further public business.
Oh.